Hey guys, welcome back to the video. I'm Luke, a former investment banker and CFA charter holder, and today I'm going to talk through how I passed CFA Level 1 at the first attempt. Now, if you're preparing for CFA Level 1, you'll already be well aware that this is no ordinary exam. The syllabus is absolutely enormous, the pass rates are very low, and it's a very tough exam. It's easy to get overwhelmed and demoralized very quickly. I've been there, I know exactly how that feels. So in this video, I'm gonna run through some advice and discuss some of the strategies that worked really well for me when I was studying. I'll walk you through how I structured my study time, what resources I used to help prepare for the exam, how I practiced questions, and also how I tackled things like ethics, which I know can be a minefield for a lot of candidates. If you are studying towards this exam and feeling a bit stressed out, don't. It is challenging and difficult, but it is also very passable, and there are a number of candidates that do pass all three exams at the first attempt, but you need to be quite structured in terms of how you map out your study and revision schedule and how you attack questions and get prepped for exam day. So without further ado, let's get started. My first piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the Level 1 exam is to start studying early. I can't stress this point enough. It may be the most important point that I discuss in this video, but the key to doing well in this exam is giving yourself ample time to prepare for it. I personally started studying around 6 months before exam day, and I felt that this was the sweet spot. It gave me enough time to prepare and go into depth on each of the topics and really learn and assimilate everything. It wasn't too long a window where I was starting to forget things towards the exam day. I never felt like I was forgetting any of the material, but it also wasn't too short a window where I didn't need to cram anything. There was no cramming that I needed to fit into my study schedule. I had enough time to prepare without having to rush any of the readings or any of the practice problems that I was attempting. I aimed to study for around 15 hours every week, and for me, this was a non-negotiable. I would study 15 hours every week and never skipped a week. Even when life got busy and work got busy, I always found a way to carve out time to do my studying. I almost treated CFA Level 1 like a part-time job. I made a commitment to myself that I would study for 15 hours every single week, rain or shine. The key for me was consistency. I didn't want to pull all-nighters or have to do days of 12, 13, 14 hours of studying. I wanted to do little and often, keep everything consistent, keep everything ticking over, and slowly but surely get to the finish line. My goal was to make steady progress every single week and avoid burnout. I would map out my upcoming week every Sunday night, decide which topics I was going to study, which questions I was going to do, which mock exams I was going to do that upcoming week, and stick to that schedule religiously. I never deviated from it, and I always did what I set out to do every single week. And I think this consistency really helped me perform well in the exam. Next up, let's talk a little bit about study materials. So when I studied towards Level 1, I used a mix of the Kaplan-Schweizer materials and the CFA curriculum. I thought Kaplan was brilliant. It provided a clear overview of the material. It was concise, but also went into a good amount of depth. And I thought the practice problems were great. But when I did run into trickier topics like accounting, ethics, fixed income, I did find that I was turning towards the CFA curriculum because Kaplan wasn't quite hitting the mark when it came to the most difficult and most challenging areas of the syllabus. It's more detailed, it's more thorough. Sometimes Kaplan just didn't go into enough depth in those areas, so I did use a blend of the Kaplan materials and the curriculum. I'd say the curriculum added that extra layer of understanding that I needed to fully understand the content at Level 1, especially for those topics where conceptual understanding is critical. You need to understand the topics to really be able to attack questions. I felt that's where the curriculum really excelled. So don't ignore the curriculum. I appreciate there's a lot of discourse online about whether you should or shouldn't use the curriculum. Personally, I thought it was great across all three levels, and I definitely used it and relied on it at certain points in time. So yeah, don't ignore the curriculum. Do use it if you are using a third-party prep provider. You need to blend the two. If I had to pick the number one thing that made the biggest difference to my performance in the Level 1 exam, I would say it was relentless question practice. I did every single question I could get my hands on. I did the Kaplan questions, CFA Institute end of chapter questions, mock exams, questions in the learning portal. Every single question I could get my hands on, I would do it. I would recommend you do as much question practice as possible before you walk into your Level 1 sitting, because this is going to be where you make your gains. I never found myself just reading and rereading notes and preparing endless flashcards. You want to be as active as possible with your learning. So reading a topic in the curriculum and then transitioning straight onto question practice is the way you want to attack this. Question practice is what's going to get you ready for the exam, not just endlessly rereading notes and trying to memorize it. I was constantly testing myself, not just when you get close to the exam. I was doing it from the outset. I would read a topic within the material, either Kaplan or in the curriculum, and then straight away attack 20, 30 questions to make sure I had a thorough understanding of the material. As I got nearer towards exam day, that's when I started to attempt mock exams under timed exam conditions to start simulating what the actual exam day is going to look like. And I would recommend you do the same. Don't walk into the Level 1 exam without having done mock exams, but mock exams under timed exam conditions, because you want to get a feel for what the actual exam day is going to look like, what the time pressure is going to feel like. Doing multiple mock exams under timed exam conditions helped me build up exam stamina and gave me an understanding of how I would perform. I also set a goal to try and answer as many questions as I could under 90 seconds, because again, this simulates the time requirement that you have in the actual exam for each question. You have around 90 seconds to attempt each question in the Level 1 paper. So whenever I answered a question, I would always make sure in the back of my mind I was doing it within 90 seconds. So it would again simulate the amount of time I would have in the actual Level 1 exam. My fourth piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the Level 1 exam is to master ethics. Look, ethics, everyone dreads it, and for good reason. Ethics was the last topic that I studied when I was preparing for the Level 1 exam, but when I did start studying towards ethics, I hit it hard. I read through the material very carefully. I would use the CFA curriculum material when it comes to ethics. You can use third-party prep provider material, but I do recommend you use the curriculum here because it's going to cover everything you need to know for ethics, and it's the one area of the syllabus where I think most candidates would recommend you in some form use the curriculum. What was the biggest help for me when it came to ethics was doing questions. That's where you really start to notice you learning and retaining the information within that section of the material. Doing lots of questions, that's how you'll get an understanding of how the CFA will frame their questions in the real exam. With ethics, it's less about memorizing lots of facts and memorizing lots of information, which is what the other areas of the syllabus at Level 1 are like. But in ethics, it's much more about understanding the logic that underpins the standards. Doing lots of question practice helped me get into the CFA mindset and understand how the examiners are going to present this topic area in the exam. Also, ethics has something called the ethics exam adjustment, where borderline candidates may be recategorized as a pass or a fail if they're borderline, depending on how they perform in the ethics section. So I would say ethics is probably the most important section of the material to nail. And my final piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the CFA Level 1 exam is spaced repetition. So let's talk a little bit about memorization here, because this exam is memorization heavy. Level 2 and Level 3 are a lot more about understanding and application and going deep in a lot of the topic areas, but Level 1 is much more about memorization. You need to learn as much of the information from the curriculum as possible before you walk into the exam. And with such huge volumes of material that's contained within Level 1, I needed to find a way to retain what I was learning as I went, and spaced repetition really changed the game for me. I created my own flashcards, both physical and digital flashcards, which I revisited regularly to make sure I was retaining and memorizing everything that I was learning as I went through the curriculum. I used flashcards in particular for definitions, formulas, and any just tricky concepts that I was struggling to memorize, and I found it super helpful. And again, I stuck to the same rule as I mentioned earlier, little and often. Just doing 10 to 15 minutes worth of flashcard work every day will really add up over time and help you retain so much more information from the Level 1 syllabus, and will prevent a mad panic weeks before the exam when you're attempting mock exams and you realise you don't know anything. If you can keep on top of your studying and do as much as you can every single day, then you'll be really well positioned by the time you get into the revision phase of your prep. So there you have it. That's how I passed the CFA Level 1 exam at the first attempt. So to conclude, I would recommend you start your studying around 6 months out. Any time longer than that is great, but I would recommend 6 months at a minimum. I used a blend of the Kaplan materials and the CFA curriculum. I think Kaplan is a decent prep provider, but I do recommend that you use the curriculum when needed, when you're studying trickier topic areas that you're struggling to get a foothold with. I did relentless question practice, so I would recommend you do as much question practice as you possibly can, because question practice is where you're going to understand how a lot of these topics are applied in an exam scenario. I studied really hard on ethics. I think ethics is a key area within the syllabus, and it's an area where a lot of candidates struggle and leave to the last minute and don't do adequate prep on. So I would recommend you carve out time within your study schedule to prepare well for the ethics section of the exam, and also use spaced repetition, active recall techniques to help onboard as much information from the syllabus as you possibly can gradually over time. You don't want to cram at the last minute this exam, because that will really amp up the stress levels for you. If you're watching this video and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and stressed out by the volume of material within the syllabus, don't worry, it's completely normal. Everyone feels the exact same way, but you do need to be disciplined, strategic and consistent with your study approach to do well here. You can't cram this at the last minute. You will fail if you find yourself in that position. I hope this video helped, and I hope you're feeling more prepared for the exam going into exam day. If you've got any questions about the CFA Level 1 syllabus or the exam, feel free to fire them off in the comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And if you did like the video, please smash the like button and consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.